This next session, we're going to have Cam Drew is going to join us. So Cam is currently with Fenestration Canada. He's one of our consultants that works for us. He does a lot of member support service work, as well as an online podcast of The Business of It All, which dives into more of, obviously, the business of what we do. So watch for those. There'll be more of those coming up. So Cam's been in the industry for about a dozen years, 13-ish, something like that. 17 years. Good. Has it been that long? So Cam and I met back in 2010, 29. And he had just bought a company on Vancouver Island called Thermal-Proof Windows. And I remember it so vividly because he joined Fenestration BC, of which I was a part of at the time. And he comes in, he introduces himself. Yeah, I'm Cam Drew, and I bought this new company, and I'm going to be in the window business. He says, I came from radio, the radio industry. He says, there's so much regulation there. It was terrible. I couldn't take it anymore. So I thought I'd come to the window industry where there's hardly any regulation. Surprise! So Cam and I have had a great time over the years. We do a lot of stuff together, a lot of work together. Him and I actually live quite close to each other on Vancouver Island. So I'd like to welcome Cam Drew to come up and talk about lean manufacturing.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you, everybody, for the nice welcome there. So to give you a little background, in 2008, just had the company for about a year, and of course, the world economic crash happened, and then 2009, things came back, so everything was fine again, and then in about 2010, it crashed again in the building industry. So I went online and started looking for something that could help us manufacture better. I knew there was some improvements. I just didn't know where the tools were. And the BC government had the Pull Ahead BC program. Anybody else here involved in the Pull Ahead BC program? There was 8 manufacturers on Vancouver Island that started it. It was a year-long program sponsored by the government, but only 5 of us finished. 3 dropped out because there was a big commitment. Your commitment was this. You had to put all of your staff through the training throughout the year, which meant we would have to take 6 of us out of the plant and go up island and have a day of training, and there was testing. 3 of us became certified. I was one of the 3 that became certified in that year. But it really benefited the company. We were able to speak on a different level, understand, identify waste and remove it. So what I want to do today is share with you some of the tools that we were shown over that year and that we implemented for the years following at Thermal-Proof. You can do whatever you'd like to do with them, but and know that this isn't just for manufacturing. Your dentist is very lean, so lean is everywhere you want it to be. So I understand this. Many years ago, I had a radio station, and it was taught to us that the psychological entry fee, you want to lower that in anything that you do. So for those of you that get excited about today, and you go back and you want to share this with your team members, understand that their psychological entry fee may be very high. And I understand that for most, how many of you currently have a lean program going in your company? All right. Some, that's great. Perfect. Not as many as maybe should, but that's great to see some. So for you, the psychological entry fee of what I'm going to talk about today is very low. You've already experienced all of this, 5S and Gembas and everything. For those that haven't had much experience, I understand that it's quite high. So my job here today is to lower it. It's the amount of thinking you have to do to become invested in something. I'll give you a quick example in the radio industry. When we would start a new promotion, if tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, be the 7th caller to this number to win $1,000, that's a very low psychological entry fee. A lot of people understand the rules and will call in. You'll have a ton of calls. Your phone lines will be packed. But if the contest is get the scavenger hunt package and make sure between 2 and 4 on Tuesday afternoons you're at this store here and get it stamped, and then you need to go for, you're all of a sudden, I can see like you're going, wait a minute, I'm not in, man. And by the way, at the end you get a $25 gift certificate, maybe. You're like, wait a minute, be the 7th caller for $10,000 and more people get involved. So lower the psychological entry fee. So understand that when you get back to the plant or the factory or company, it's going to be pretty high with the information that you received today. So let's see if we can lower it here. Okay. Right now, I built a couple homes. Took exactly 3 months from start to finish. And for many years, that was the time it took to build a home. Right now, it's a little different. But the world record for building a home is 3 hours and 26 minutes and 34 seconds. Now, I don't think I'd want to live in a home built in 3 hours and 26 minutes and 34 seconds. I'd rather live in a home built in 3 months or 6 months. But it shows it can be done. How you do it, you can't just all show up on the job site and say, okay, where are we going to start? And finish 3 hours later. There's a ton of pre-planning done if you want to complete the job. There can be no waste at all to set the world record, is basically what we're saying. Toyota shows us there can be no waste at all. So let's see if we can, I'm not saying that we need to speed things up all the time. I think we just need to make sure there is no waste. Here's an example. I live next door to Elderly Vineyards on Vancouver Island. They make great wine. If you happen to see it somewhere, pick it up. I think you'd be really happy. I help them out bottling every year for 3 weeks, 15 days. So last year, they bottled 43,000 bottles in 15 days. There's 7 people on the line, plus Zach, the owner. He's filming this. I'm going to show you the bottling line, and then we're going to do a quick little exercise. So, there's the shaker, shakes the empty bottles, and then there is the filler. All right, you see how that fills, and then there's the corker. Dwayne there is corking. He hands it off to Akshay, who is going to put the label on. That's the labeler. He's going to hand it to Seb. Seb is going to do an inspection and put the cap on, and then Seb hands it to Julie, one of the co-owners. Julie then puts the cap on, and then hands it, there was the day that I was working, hands it to me, and if everything works right, every 5 seconds, another bottle comes to me, and I can fill a case. Oh, there's Vino, by the way. That's the manager of the company, Vino the dog. But everything works right. I should fill a case every 1 minute, because it's 5 seconds per bottle, 12 bottles to a case, 60 seconds to a case, and then 70 cases to a pallet. We should be able to do a pallet in 70 minutes, because the filler, you saw the filler, which was workstation number 2, spits out a bottle, can fill a bottle of wine in 30 seconds. The carousel holds 6 bottles of wine, so the cycle time is 5 seconds. Every 5 seconds, the corker can take one out. Last year, they did it in 15 days. This year, we did it in 13 and a half. Now, I was there last year for a couple days, and Zach said to me, don't pull any of that Six Sigma stuff on me here, okay? I don't want to hear any of this lean stuff. And so, all right, fine. But anytime there was any stoppage in work, I would just ask why. That's all. Why? Why were we stopped? And, it was the labeler machine. Why? Oh, the labels were not sticking. Well, why? Oh, the humidity level was too high. Well, why is that? Well, we didn't warm the bottles. Oh, okay. Just left it at that. This year, we did the exact same amount of bottles in a day and a half less. How? By the way, we did not speed up the bottling machine, all right, because there's your cycle time. You cannot be any faster than 5 seconds per bottle. The corking can handle that. The labeler, cap, all the other workstations can handle the 5 seconds. So how did we shave a day and a half off? Where would you start? Anybody? Because I was looking at how can we, set the bottles this way and that way and a little bit of build this and move the table up and down and everything. How did he shave a day and a half off? Anybody? Any suggestions? Scott got it. Sorry, what was that? Well, we did drink a lot of the product at the end of every day. Scott nailed it. He reduced downtime. So he looked at the 7 workstations and said, okay, so the bottle filler wasn't last year, it was overfilling. The odd bottle here and there. And it was out of the 6 in the carousel, number 1 and number 4 were the problem. So he just rebuilt the bottle filler. Just a little bit of work there. The bottle filler ran really well this year. It was amazing. So that was not an issue. And then the corking machine, that runs pretty well. That's why he's the floater, because you got to keep pouring corks into there. But last year it was jamming a little bit, so we used a non-toxic spray that he put in there, a little bit of silicone spray, a food-safe silicone spray, just so the corks flowed down and in a little better. Because if he reaches in and he puts the bottle in, hits the machine, if it doesn't bring a cork down, then we've lost 5 seconds. and over 43,000 bottles, that's where you see you can get that day and a half. So that's really what I wanted to talk about today. It may not be about speeding up your line, it's about reducing your downtime. If that's all we do today, we've done well. Why does lean matter? We've got rising costs and competitive pressure. We know we've got rising costs and competitive pressure, so that's eating your margin away. Using some lean tools may be able to help you draw back some of that margin. You've got high customer expectations. Those of you in commercial glazing don't live in the same world as those that are in residential glazing. Residential glazing, of course, has, I don't know if you've heard of Google reviews, but man, oh man, they are so important. So you have extremely high customer expectations. Don't feel that just because you're in commercial glazing that you don't have high customer expectations. So you need to have on-time quality every time. So you need to have quality and consistency, and that creates value. And that's what we're talking about here today, is creating value. And it matters to everyone in your company. So the reason why you're going to find a lot of communication in this presentation, a lot of respect, a lot of safety. They may not be asking, can our company become lean? Especially because most of your team, if they were interviewed, would say, no, because that means I'm out of a job. No. Lean means a safer environment, higher quality and a more consistent basis. Doesn't mean that everybody gets fired. That's for AI. No, I'm kidding. But it's more respect to your team members. So here are some of the lean tools that we're going to dive into today. The Gemba walk, probably the toughest one, the most important one. Value stream mapping, I think that's one of the easiest ones. So is 5S. We're going to show you a floor diagram. That is so simple. And toad licking, I'm going to show you, and that has nothing to do with lean at all in a way. But once you learn this, my wife and I were at a presentation many years ago, and we saw the toad licking, and we use this all the time on the farm. So what is Gemba? This is going to be our first tool, all right? Gemba is where everything happens. And if you go to the dentist, where you're sitting in that chair and the dental hygienist is around you and that's Gemba. And dentists are very, very lean, probably because they like to pay themselves between $1,000 and $2,000 an hour. And you can't do that if there's any waste. You notice when you're getting your teeth cleaned, she doesn't leave the workstation to go get something and come back and then leave again, then come back and leave and come back in. When he comes in as well, he sits right there and everything he needs is handed to him and she has it right at her disposal. You notice there's not a lot of waste. My dentist, Dr. Ron Smith, spent $250,000 on his floor plans in 1994. We were building a building together. And I said, Ron, are you crazy? He goes, no, I'm $750 an hour in 1994. He says, I'm not crazy. $250,000 is not too much. I'll pay that back in a couple of years. Don't worry about that. And he's still in that building today, still operating up there in those same floor plans. And he doesn't step 3 steps when he only needs to step 2. So it all adds up. So Gemba is the real place, the place where things happen. So for those of you that are commercial glazers, it may be in the factory or it may be at the job site where Gemba is. What is the Gemba walk? That's where some of the most important people, if you're at Toyota and you're wandering through the plant and you see some people who look like, they don't belong there on the floor, they're probably, maybe it's the CEO of Toyota, regional directors, supervisors, and they're walking the floor. They're doing a Gemba walk. The walk takes you right down to the floor, and you get to interact and communicate to find out some very important information. And with this information, your company will be more productive on a regular basis. So the keys to a great Gemba walk: go see, don't do it in an office, go to the floor or the job site. Focus on the process, not the people. They're not doing anything wrong. Something going wrong, put that back to yourself. It's probably the process that hasn't been either worked out properly or trained properly. Ask open-ended questions, and I'm going to show you 3 open-ended questions that work very well on a Gemba walk. Record your observations. So you've got the clipboard, you're writing things down because you're going to get some observations from your team members, and you need to circle back on those. So follow up on these meetings. And even if somebody says, can I have a beer fridge in my workstation? Write it down, go through the motions, and And if they can't have a beer fridge, go back and tell them, no, you can't have a beer fridge at your workstation, and here are the reasons why. That's respect to your team members. And then you want to integrate Gemba walks into your daily routine. This is probably the toughest ask I'm going to have of you today. Everything else is fairly simple, but if you can do this, you'll be way ahead. And then standardize what good looks like. So once you've got everything looking good, standardize that. All right, we're going to get to show you what good looks like. So here's some open-ended question. So you're on site tomorrow morning, and it's a commercial building. You're doing some commercial glazing. What makes the install difficult? It's a great question. They're going to answer. But then why? You can ask 5 whys what made this difficult, and it may not be 5 whys of that one person. You may need to ask some others, but that's going to then get you on the path to making the next job site not so difficult. So where do things usually go wrong? They're going to tell you. It's not like they're going to lie or not going to hold back. Trust me. They love to tell their supervisors where things are going wrong. They're telling everybody else on the job site. They're probably just not telling you because you're not asking. And what slows you down the most? Wow, what a great question. You get the answer to that, then basically what Scott was speaking to, right? We're just going to try to remove the delays, because you have a cycle. There is cycle times. Trust me, the cycle times, you see the equipment that's being displayed here has very high cycle times. You could be making a lot more of whatever you're making every day. I know that. We thought, a new welder was going to be the answer to all our problems, or a corner cleaner or something. We looked at the cycle times, and that would, yes, our current welder, as old as it was, would allow us to make 3 times as many windows a day than we were currently making. So it wasn't the cycle time of the welder. It was, we just had delays at different workstations. We just needed to find out what they were, talk to the people on those workstations, and remove them. You're going to see a lot of Japanese names. The Gemba is, Gemba is Japanese for the real place. Kaizen is continuous improvement. I'd like to see, you'd all be very happy if you get yourself on a continuous improvement journey. A poke yoke. You have poke yokes currently. Is there anybody who has a milling machine where you can't put the mullion in incorrectly? Do you have that? You have that, don't you? Or can you put your mullion in wrong? If you can, create a poke yoke. Because if it can be done wrong, it will be done wrong. So a poke yoke is basically designing so it's almost impossible. Duncan Ettridge, Duncan was our trainer for a year, and he worked at the Bacardi plant in one of his careers. And he would load the labeler, and the label would label 1,000 bottles, I can't remember, like an hour or something. And he loaded them incorrectly one day, so he labeled 300 bottles with the label backwards. Okay, fine. Don't look at the person, look at the process. So what was wrong in the process? The problem was he could put the labels in backwards. That was the problem. So what they did is they went to the manufacturer, and they asked the manufacturer of the labels just to put a little black line 1 inch in on the top of all of the labels. You didn't see it once the label was on, but you saw it when you were loading in the labels, and then they just drew a black line up on the left side. So if that black line and that black line lined up, you're good to go. If they didn't, you put the labels in backwards. That was a simple poke yoke that made it almost impossible. You still could. You had to work really hard at putting the labels in backwards. Okay, so we've gone through the Gemba walk. We're moving through pretty quickly here, and I will take a lot of questions. And if you want this presentation, I'll email it to you. Just get me your email, and I usually send this out to folks after. So next is value stream mapping, and we did this quite a lot. So in everything that you do, every process, there are 3 things. It's either value, you're creating value, something the customer will pay for, or it's non-value added, but it's a necessity. Bookkeeping, all of that, quoting, something the customer wouldn't pay for, but it has to happen to get you from quote to order, or it's waste. It's not something the customer would pay for, and it's not a necessity. So a value stream map breaks down your processes, and you're looking to identify everything. Is it value? Is it an NVA, non-value added, or is it waste? Here's a value stream map. and we'll go through this. So number one, process identification. Does anybody want to do a value stream map real quickly here? Anybody feel that they could benefit? Anybody have a workstation that you think there might be just a little bit of waste in? No, you guys are awesome. That's great. Really? We had 11 workstations at Thermoproof, and I knew there was waste in all 11. That's why we spent the year and all the resources to keep identifying. Toyota, by the way, at the start of your year, if you're taking a year to do this, you're to score yourself out of 5. And how good are you from 1 to 5? Toyota is one of the greatest manufacturers in the world. They're currently by J.D. Power rated. Toyota and Lexus are number 1 and 2 for reliability. That tells you they make a pretty good car. And they score themselves 3.5 out of 5. So what they're saying is nobody's perfect. You're not going to get to 5, but to get to 3.5 means you're counting paper clips. So we all have a long ways to go. We can all identify and remove waste in our processes. So let's say that, let's just start with your Sawyer. You've got I'm imagining that most of you cut aluminum frames at some point. Is that right? Raise your hand if you cut aluminum frames at your job site. Just a couple. Okay. What is it that we manufacture? We're all commercial glazers here, somewhat. Okay, or not. Okay, so I'm at the Dentist Association here, but it still works. So we identify the process that we want to run, and you're going to hear me use the term VSM, value stream map. So my staff knew, we're holding a VSM. Everybody, that was invited knew what was going to happen. So we're doing a VSM on a process at your factory. We're going to identify that process first. We have to identify where do we start and where do we end with it. So is it just the Sawyer or the Sawyer and the workstation after, or is it delivery, site manufacturing? What's the scope of this value stream map? And then what are our objectives? Is it that we're having a lot of damage, returns, customer calls? What's our objective? It's always to identify and remove waste with a value stream map. And then you map the current state. We were lucky because we had bought a bakery facility and it needed a bunch of renovations. So we found a boardroom, and instead of drywalling the wall, we put up that agro board. We have it in our barn. It's vinyl board, about 12 inches wide, and we did a whole wall of it. So we had a whiteboard that was 12 feet long and 9 feet high. So that's where we would value stream map with a dry erase marker and do that. If you don't have that, take some construction paper or just take Post-it notes and just put your processes together and start with the start of the scope and go to the end and put everything that you can think of, and make sure in the room yourself, if you have anybody that has any lean training on your team, have them in there to oversee the VSM. Anybody on the floor, your Sawyer should be in the room. Anybody that actually from the Gemba should be in the room. Supervisors, don't miss a thing. All of the processes, and identify them as value added, non-value added, or waste. Don't do anything with that, just identify all of them. And now here's how we identify what is waste. Is there anybody in the room named Tim Woods? Tim Woods? I hope not, because it's associated with waste. Here's Tim Woods. It's transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, defects and skills. You're going to see this if you go on a lean journey. You'll see this slightly different. Some will say there's 7 forms of waste, and it may change a little bit. Let's just for today work with these 8 forms of waste. So transportation, any unnecessary movement of materials or products would be a waste. And I think you may or may not have the double handling of pallets or racks, but if you put one of those trackers on a rack, you might find that it does a bit of a spaghetti diagram all the way around here, there, and that's where damage happens. Plus, that's where injury can happen. That's just waste. It doesn't need to do it, but it did it because we didn't plan ahead of time. What were we going to do with this pallet? Where should it be? Just don't put it over, put it over there. There's room over there, and then move it over there because it's in the way, then move it again, and then off it goes. So let's try to, transportation adds cost, but no value. Inventory, excess raw materials, work in progress, finished goods. So if you're overstocked, your finished goods sitting while waiting for shipment, inventory hides problems and it ties up cash. So I understand that inventory can be post-COVID, how difficult this can be, because pre-COVID, we all had what were called Kanbans. I think you all understand the Kanban system. So when you get down to 2 boxes, you order 3 more and it takes 3 weeks and 3 more boxes come. Fantastic. You never run out. Post-COVID, that can be a little more challenging. We're going to order 3 containers when we need 2 boxes, and we're going to have to store them and all that. But that's where you're going to have to manage your inventory and try to create the least amount of waste possible. So now the motion is the unnecessary movement by people. And let's go back to the dentist. He wanted to make sure he had no waste in the motion of people, especially himself, because of the value of a dentist. Your people are just as valuable. Don't waste their motion. You've got people walking all over the factory. Sometimes they're often what we called Where's Waldo was Where's Tool. And you could see somebody, they're looking for the tool from their workstation. And we never got here, but we'd had a meeting where our goal was to have a colored sign over top of every workstation. So if the workstation's color was blue, the sign would be blue, and every tool that is to live in that workstation would have blue spray paint on it. It would be blue, and it can't leave that workstation, because somebody comes by and says, oh, I just need your snippers, and they take off. And then when the person in that workstation goes to grab them, now they're wandering. Also becomes Pied Piper, because when they start wandering, somebody goes, what are you looking for? Oh, I've lost my snippers. I'll give you a hand. Oh my God. Before you know it, the Pied Piper has 3 people in tow all through the factory. When we had downtime at the vineyard, because there was 1 person fixing anything and 7 people, we couldn't do anything. So 10 minutes of downtime was 70 minutes of lost labor. So when the Pied Piper is going with 3 people in tow, that's 4 people. If it takes 7 minutes to find that tool, that's 28 minutes lost. That's that waste we're talking about. And that's why you can't get to that cycle time of your slowest machine. Motion impacts efficiency, safety, and morale. Nobody wants to be inefficient. Nobody wants to be walking around. Oh, Duncan told a funny story about he interviewed some of the staff at a truss plant, and he just said one of the questions, the Gemba questions, what causes your day? What slowed you down? So it's the fax machine, because it's upstairs. You go down the end and you go upstairs, and we have to fax about 3-4 times a day. This is back when fax machines were happening. What happened is that's where the phone line was in an office down the hall upstairs. So when they got a fax machine, they put it there. They didn't think to put the phone line down to where they needed the fax machine. They put the fax machine to where they already had the phone line. And for about 12 years, everybody was walking across the floor, up the stairs, and down the hall to fax multiple times a day, until Duncan said, let's move the phone line. They did that about a week later and probably saved, I would think, $7,000 a year. So idle time when people or machines are not working. We talked about that with Elderly Vineyards. There's that day and a half that they got back, bottled the same amount of bottles in a day and a half less, same people, same everything. But he just cut down the amount of times where the machines were not working. So if you see somebody waiting, ask 5 whys. And you may not have to ask the 5 whys of that person. They may say, well, I was waiting for the item from the previous workstation. Okay. Go to the previous workstation. Why were they waiting for that? Well, it's because this is down. Okay, great. Why is that down? We're only at 3 whys yet. 2 more whys to go, and you'll probably fix the problem. Overproduction, producing more than needed or earlier than needed. I don't know about you, but when we got the factory, we had a whole bunch, they'd bought a bunch of glass for skylights, because we were making skylights back then, and we wanted to get out of skylights, so we made a bunch of sealed units with the glass that we had, just hundreds and hundreds. We thought this is going to save us, because when we need to make a skylight, we'll just put the glass in. Well, then regulations came in, the glass was no good, and we threw it out. That was an expensive lesson about overproduction. Over-processing, doing more work than the customer requires, extra inspections or approvals, check your paperwork. A value stream map will help you identify when you're doing more than it's needed, because it's either going to be value, non-value added, but a necessity, or waste. Which is it? So if the customer won't pay for it, it may be waste. Defects, rework or scrap, it happens. It could happen less. Incorrect dimensions or assembly errors. Again, use your poke yokes so that there's less defects. Find as many places in the factory that you can create a poke yoke. And don't just, I keep saying the factory. We had a value stream map on just the quote and order process, only to the point where it became an order. We did that. That every part of and then we did it with the invoicing, and we found a bunch of waste in both of those processes, and neither of them involved the factory floor. So there is waste in every process, and you should have, I recommend a value stream map all the way through, and you'll find defects. You should be able to remove defects by using these tools. Then they cost time, money, and customer trust. And then this is often the biggest waste is skills. Not fully utilizing people's abilities and knowledge. The Gemba Walk will help you fully utilize them. Employees not asked for improvement ideas. Skills not matched to tasks, limited training or cross-training. Often the most overlooked waste. We were using gift cards, as recognition. We would hold a quarterly meeting with the staff. All staff were invited. Pizza, food, all that, and then recognize people if they had a suggestion that was beneficial to the company. Well, you'll get a lot more suggestions, and it doesn't cost you, in this day and age, a $100 gas card, which gets them 3 liters of gas. So there you go. So we've done the waste identification. Now we map the future state. Now we're aware of how to identify waste, and now we just map out what should it look like with the waste removed. Great. And then from there, what's your action plan and implementation? And make sure you follow up from this value stream mapping. This also, the value stream map, we would turn them into PDFs, and they would become standard operating working procedure. So if you had somebody new starting in a position, now you've got the value stream map that shows all the process. It's very easy to walk them through and train them through what jobs they have, what happens before them, what happens after, how important their job is. One of my partners was also a client of ours. He was a builder, and he knew what we were doing in lean manufacturing and the training. And so what he did is he hired one of our trainers to come brought him to a local white spot, and he invited myself and all of his subcontractors for a lunch. And Bob, that's where we found out a house could be built in 3 hours and 26 minutes, because we were all guessing 16 days or whatever. And what Kevin, the builder, wanted us to know is he had us sitting in the order that the house is built, that the person to the left of you needs to hand the house off to you when they're scheduled to, so you can do what you need to do, and you need to be on time so you can hand it off to the person after you. And when you're late, you affect everybody at the table after you. The painter said, well, why don't I just tell you it's going to take me 7 days to paint the house when I think it can be done in 5? He says, the house costs me $1,000 a day when it sits empty. You need to know how many days it's going to paint the house. And if it's 5, you need to then work on getting it done in 5 days. That's what you need to do. That was a bit of an eye-opener, but in the midst of all the chaos that was going on, one day I called Kevin. I said, Kevin, he's a partner of mine. I said, your order is due on Monday. We're really having some struggles getting it completed. Can I get it to you on Wednesday? He said, oh man, it is really tough, but no. So, all right. So we went to the floor and said, how are we going to do this? And we got it there on Monday. All right, 5S, this one's so simple and so rewarding. Your team are going to love you for this. When we did this, things became safer, and it's just basically going to a workstation. Doesn't matter which one. It could be a van. For those of you that do, the on-site glazing, your workstation is your van. Whatever you identify, it can be the front desk of your Leonard, the front desk of Reed Jones can be lean, right? So they don't have to get up and walk to the fax machine. So you separate needed items from unneeded items. And man, I couldn't believe how many unneeded items we had in a workstation. So we identified a place on the floor. We used red tags. Everything that was unneeded went to that place on the floor. So it came out of the workstation right away. Then we had to deal with it when the red tags basically said whether or not it was scrap, recycling, repair, whatever. But it had to then go to the next step. So you sort. You set an order, organize, arrange for ease of use. Think of the dentist. Think, are most people right-handed that are in this workstation? What are they using most? What's heaviest? What's closest? Think of the glazing, the blocks in the cutting machine, and where are they going to be? How are they identified? Again, think of the pokey yoke. So they can't do it wrong. They can't put it in incorrectly to go, oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. I'll put it back. Now I'll do it the right way, because there's our delay in manufacturing. That slows the machine down. Shine. One of the reasons that we were shown to shine as well is it'll be easier to see if a piece of equipment is failing. If it's got an oil leak, you'll see it because your floor is clean. If there's anything unsafe, it'll stand out more in a clean environment. So clean, and also there's great morale. People are coming to work into a clean workstation or coming into work in a dirty workstation. Think for yourself, which of the two would you rather step into, especially if you have A and B shifts? Standardize. Keep the workplace in perfect condition. We were taking photographs and printing them out in color and would post them in the workstation. Now that we've got it clean, this is how it is to look. That's all. And then when you do your Gemba walk, a quick look at the photo, quick look at the workstation, great. That way it doesn't get out of control too quickly. If something is moved or brought into that workstation, 5 whys. And if so, it needs to be there, update your photograph. Any questions so far? I should stop and just ask, is it all making sense? Am I lowering the psychological entropy into becoming lean? Because that's really the goal here. Question far back. Oh, thank you. All right. You can ask away anytime. All right. No, that's good, Adrian. We got just a comment. So far, so good. So we're lowering the psychological entry fee of lean manufacturing, which to many people, to us, we didn't know at all what it was. And it was scary at the start. And then sustain. So following the first 4 S's without direction. So the person who is in charge of that workstation, it just is 5S all day long. All right. And this is a real rewarding, you pick a workstation that needs it, go hit it. You'll feel great. And so will all the people that work in there. The floor diagram, we went to this so often, and this is so easy. Get yourself a whiteboard that is magnetic. Buy yourself a couple sheets of the 8.5 by 11 magnets, and then also buy that thin black tape that you can put on a whiteboard. Get somebody at your staff or hire out to measure your facility. We had one facility, we sold that. And that one was so important because that facility had been there for so long. It had grown. They had added 7 buildings onto the original manufacturing. And there were some areas you could not roll a cart from one station to another. So you really had to work your floor out. The one we moved to was very open and big and was very easy to set up. But anytime we were talking about moving equipment, that equipment had to be cut out of a magnet to scale, to size, and we'd put it on the floor where we talked about putting it. And usually when you put it there, you find, well, then nobody can move, and then we have to move this piece of equipment. So then you start moving around and bring everybody, get as big of like a 4x6 if you can find room, put it down somewhere on the floor diagram somewhere on the floor, and bring people from their workstation around to see if they have an idea. Great. Don't say no. Bring them there. Let's put it on there, move the magnets around and see, can we do it? The immovable things are what you put it with the tape in. So whatever's immovable, maybe you're going to take a wall down later, you can remove the tape. But if you have any posts, they need to be on the floor because you can't put equipment where a post is. Floor diagram's very Very valuable. And then you can also use, with this, you can do your spaghetti diagram. So basically you can kind of see a spaghetti diagram going there. Where am I starting? Where does it start? And then just draw where it goes. That'll help you see, okay, do we have it going back and forth across the factory? Or is there waste there? Can we move a piece of equipment to lower the amount of steps that a product needs to move? So some of the lean communication tools, daily huddles, safety talks. I did enjoy the days that I worked at the vineyard because Zach has a background in safety. He gathered us all around. He'd talk about the day's goals. Did everybody feel safe? Anything that he thought that could be an issue. We went through all of that every morning. And I think that's why we were just nailing it there. Visual boards, and I'm going to show you an example of a visual board coming up here that was very valuable. But again, the floor diagram, very visual. People like visuals. Some factories, you may have people where English is a second language, so visual is very important. KPIs, key performance indicators. Keep it simple. Don't go too deep. Do something that you know that you can commit to. Lower the psychological entry fee, something that everybody can look at and understand. Is it just how many, we used sealed units, not windows. How many sealed units did we put through? We didn't manufacture them. We made windows, but the count was sealed units. How many did we glaze today? Standard work instructions. I will tell you that AI is fantastic for this. AI is a great assistant for a lot of what we're talking here. And then the Gemba walk. The Gemba walk supports everything. It's tough. It is tough because I'll tell you, Monday morning at 9 o'clock is your Gemba walk, but wait a minute, I've got all these other things. I got a couple of my team haven't showed. You know what? We'll just put that off till tomorrow. Basically, what you're saying to your team on the floor is, I've got other things that are more important than you, and I've got other things that are more important than getting this company where I want it to be. That doesn't make sense. So commit to the Gemba walk if you can. It's very rewarding. This is Robert Meggie from the Great Little Box Company. Does anybody know Robert? Yeah. Is he not a rock star? This guy is great. So part of our year, we got to go to the Great Little Box Company and meet Robert and tour the factory and everything. So what he shared with us is he had a workstation that was, that Shift A was doing the changeover in the workstation in 122 minutes. I think it was two people in the workstation. So it took like 61 minutes times 2, 122. He thought that might be a little high because, he did the Gemba walk and just thought that was a little high, but that's what it was. So he just decided to put a visual board up and ask Shift A to, once they did the changeover, to just write down how many minutes, how many people it took, times it by that, and write that down. That's all. And then he asked Shift B to do the same thing. So Shift B did it, but they did it in 88 minutes. So Shift A did it. 66. Then Shift B said, screw you, 36 minutes. The new average time is 14 minutes. The same workstation. Yeah. So yeah, you can remove the delays, visuals working with the team, but it was really just a matter of, well, we've always just done it that way. We're always just, nobody given us any other expectations. Nobody said anything. So once they started, their continuous improvement journey, they started to continually improve, saving $18,000 a year. Not bad. So what's your role in lean? Set expectations. I highly recommend, I'm sure most of you do this, but I still want to make sure when you're hiring, you're bringing somebody on, and no matter what job they're doing in your company, have terms and conditions, an offer of employment, terms and conditions, and document your expectations of that person, because it's going to be challenging to bring that up later. Start the communication of expectations right off the bat and stay consistent with your expectations. Go to Gemba. You hear me say it again and again. It's where everything's happening. Ask questions. I've given you some to ask. Ask more. Ask why. Support problem solving. Do all of you have an organizational chart at work? Oh, okay. All right. I consult to a group of restaurants, and there's 5 restaurants together, and we're trying to get lean, but on something else there. But I asked for the organizational chart. They didn't have one. 103 staff, no organizational chart. So when I asked them to put together, of course, they started at the top and went to the bottom, because anybody at the bottom, you're at the bottom. Well, our organizational chart was always on the side because we're all on the same line. So we always start with our shareholders and the board, and then there's me, and then everybody. We moved left to right, or you can turn it upside down because your supervisors are there to support the people on their team. Right? You're to be very supportive. They're up here making the product. You're here supporting them in everything they need to make that product as safe and as productive as possible. So get an organizational chart. Do it on its side, do it on the bottom, and whoever is responsible for that at work, get that and share that with others as well so they know where they are in the company. But don't put them on the bottom. If you're taking it to the floor or the site, don't put anybody on the bottom, left or right, or put the owner at the bottom so they're supporting the team. How do we make this stick? So maybe I've lowered the psychological entry fee for you. Maybe I've got you excited and maybe you're going to engage. How do you keep it going? Start small. Do that first. Don't start with the 5S. Start with the Gemba walk. Have the supervisor go to the workstation first and let them know what a Gemba walk is, because the very first day, 4 managers walk into that workstation together with a clipboard. It's intimidating. You're not going to get the results that you want. But their supervisor says, tomorrow we're starting what's called a Gemba walk. Where you're working is Gemba, and it's very important to us. Here's some of the questions we are probably going to be asking you. And ask it every 24 hours. One of the things we would do, we would ask, how was your day? How's your day going? They'll tell you if it's not going well. How was yesterday? Because we did the Gemba walk at 9, so obviously what happened in the last 24 hours, and anything we can do to help. Those are 3 easy questions. How you doing today? Because they started at 6, it's 9 o'clock. How was yesterday? Anything we can do to help? Wow, we sure learned a lot, just those 3 questions. But start small. Build from there. You're going to 5S. First, start with the Gemba walk. Don't 5S until you've started introducing yourself into that workstation. Then let them know we're going to do a Gemba walk for their safety. We're going to help them clean up so they can think about where should things go. What do they need most, and what causes them to leave the workstation throughout the day. The Gemba walk engages people, and don't just engage the people, engage people across the factory too. Think of people or across your company. Think of people that may not, bring your bookkeeper in on some things that you may not think to bring them in on, because they're going to have some insight that somebody on the floor may not. Communicate often. Start with terms and conditions. That's a great form of communication. Then continue to communicate with your team often. I don't think anybody's ever, in an exit interview, you probably didn't find anybody say, well, they communicated too much. They really paid too much attention to me and safety. That's why I left the company. It's not going to happen. Measure what matters. KPIs, visual boards. Don't go crazy with it though. Start small. Feel if you're not using something, remove it. Try something else. Working with the group of restaurants, we just did a stress test on pricing. It was amazing. So we're measuring what matters. Add experience. So Mark Rosenthal is one I've talked to. Duncan Entridge, unfortunately, I would give you his information because he's phenomenal, but he's back in England doing what he does with companies over there. But Mark Rosenthal is available. You could always find somebody online if you're serious about being held accountable and having somebody walk you through this continuous improvement journey. If you say, yeah, we want to bring in some of these lean principles into our workplace, then think about adding some experience and use AI. The Gemba checklist is very important. I just created one before coming here. I just asked Claude to do a Gemba checklist. It did a very good job. And then edit it for yourself. But it's just got the date, time, the workstation, safety protocol, all of that, and then just go through that when you hit the floor or the workstation that you're going to take it to. So the leanthinker.com, that is Mark Rosenthal's blog. It's very good. Maybe check that out. Lower here's some ways to, lower the psychological entry fee of doing this. the Toyota Kata practice guide from Mark Bowler. That's Mark Rother. That's what Mark Rosenthal recommended when I talked to him. He also recommended Bringing Scientific Thinking to Life, Sylvan Laundry. And then 2 books that I recommend, Gemba Kaizen, really understanding what makes a good Gemba walk from Masaki Amai. And then the Toyota Way to Lean Leadership. That was a great book. So just some reading material. If you're doing any traveling, download one of these, grab them, read them, keep them. I always like to buy the book. I like to keep it there because sometimes we went back to the Gemba Kaizen book when people would ask, well, how about this? How about that? So we just wanted to, sometimes you may not know it all, but these are some really good resources. There's tons of great resources out there. Lean is a mindset. You've just got to be thinking that, if you want to make today's production, but you want to make it safe. You want it to be quality, and you want to make exactly what you set out to do today. So the mindset helps you have great communication with your team. Once everybody's trained as well, when we say we're doing a VSM, we didn't have anybody say, well, what is that and what's that all about? We've already went through the training, so they were all on board. They knew exactly what to expect once they got into the boardroom. These tools support people. They don't replace them. They support them, and our role is to be supportive of our team members. Communication drives success. Again, can't have too much. Lean principles support continuous improvement, and that's really what you want. Toyota says it best. They're just on a continuous improvement. Everybody, a lot of people in manufacturing say Toyota's got it dialed, and they say no. We're trying to continually improve, but we have a ways to go. And now let's get back to the toad. What was the toad all about? Anybody ever know what the toad is? The toad is anything you don't want to do. And so we were shown it by this presenter. And so my wife and I'll say, how was your day? She says, I licked a lot of toads today. So the goal, the exercise was, you have to lick this guy sometime in the next 60 days. He's on the corner of your desk. You can pick him up, lick him, put him down. You got 60 days to not worry about that toad, or you can let him sit on the corner of your desk for 60 days. Now, do you think he's going to taste better in 60 days than he is today? He's going to taste worse. It's just going to get ugly and fester and look at you all day long, every day, that toad. So if you've always been thinking, you know what, I've read a little bit about these lean tools, but I just, you know what, we're going to do it. Next week, we're going to start with, implementing some lean tools into the company. That's a toad. Pick them up and lick them. Lick the toad. Lick whatever you've got that you're procrastinating. That's your toads. It'll be very helpful to you. Any questions or comments, or do we all now know how to go to our place of work and use these lean tools to remove waste? Good. All right. Yeah, good. Rich? How long would you run from here to Gemba Walk? Gemba Walk. So that's very good. It would be based off the floor, the size of, I keep using the floor. It's wherever you've identified, the scope. Where are we starting and where are we finishing? If you have a large company, we had a small company. We started with 25 employees. We finished with 50. Not a massive company. We had 11 workstations, so we could do them all in 30 minutes. Unless somebody really had something. Because you can get in and out very fast, a couple of minutes in each one because you were there yesterday. It doesn't, if nothing went wrong, fantastic. Have a great day. Something went wrong, you're going to spend a little bit of time there. And if you have a large company, then of course you're going to break it up. Different supervisors are going to start and finish in different places. Tom?
Hey, Cam, great presentation as always. It's always a valid concept. I would just say 2 things on the plant floor. Look for your laziest workers because they often can show you the path to more efficiency. They get the job done without all of the extra efforts. And in terms of books, I'd also recommend the Goldbrat book, The Goal. He does deep dive on theory of constraints in a very practical session. Back in my Gino days in Calgary, that was required reading for everybody on the floor.
Yeah, The Goal. I've read it. Fantastic. Great book. Thanks, Tom. Any other questions, comments? Otto? Here, or Maria? We'll start with Maria and then Otto. Maria?
Thanks, Cam. Any tricks or tools on how to get your employees aligned and engaged without instilling fear in them?
Very good, because this day and age we're talking about AI replacing jobs, and okay, so we go back to the slide of the psychological. So Maria, you've nailed it. You understand that there's a high psychological entry fee, and when people can't wrap their heads around it, they're just going to push back and say, well, we always had staff members. That's why we were able to, engaging every staff member helped a trainer show them where waste was. It wasn't us saying, hey, we got a bunch of waste. It was somebody else. And that is one tool, is bringing some outside help right off the bat. We played Lego. Oh man, that was so good. Have you all played Lego? Have you built planes with Lego before? Have you done that? Yeah, you've done it. What a great exercise, right? You start off and the first person gets 3 pieces of Lego, the second person gets 5, and the third person gets 2, and you build as many planes as you can in 1 minute, and it's not a lot of planes. And then once you, of course, level it, so everybody's doing the same amount, you build 11 planes in a minute. And everybody went, oh, okay, I got it. This is what we're going to do. We're just going to try to level. Nobody, we didn't take anybody out. We used the same amount of people. We just leveled it. And that was a very helpful tool, is if you have somebody come and maybe do the Lego plane building, lower the psychological entry fee. Otto?
Yeah, you mentioned the psychological entry fee for getting into lean. If you've been into it for a number of years and you want to keep the enthusiasm, you want to keep people focused, what would you recommend for sort of techniques to get it keep it fresh, keep people engaged?
So I talked to Duncan in England the other day. So I'd asked him that question, and what he had found was the rewarding is, it's challenging to, when you ask people what do they want, it used to be money wasn't a motivator, and now money is a motivator. Rewards are motivators, rewards and recognition. So if you do those meetings and you identify people that gave you some input that did create productivity or quality, and then reward them publicly. So if I gave Otto a $100 gap certificate for a great question, we'd probably end up with some more great questions here, over the next little bit. We'd have a tough time getting out of here because it's motivating, recognition, public, all of those things. So I'd recommend that, because you're going to get some people who've always just kind of followed along with it, but not really gotten involved. Now all of a sudden they see, well, wait a minute, there's public recognition and there's some reward. Maybe the next time they come around, I'm going to have some input and I'm going to get more involved in this. Maybe one way to go.
Yeah, so a way to get the quality of ideas up. Yeah.
Recognition and reward. Amber, did you have a question? No? Or are you just stretching your arm? Okay, there you go. All right. Okay.
Add a bit of a comment to what Maria was talking about and motivating the people to be involved. You got to get the biggest dog in the company
Terry, there you go.
Engaged and participating at the same level as everybody else. That's huge. If you don't have that buy-in at the top, you can scrap the whole thing and walk away.
Yeah, maybe one of the reasons why I was successful at Thermoproof is I wasn't the owner. I was taking the course. So I wanted it to happen. So I went from the top right down. I wanted to make sure everybody, but when you do that, that's one of the reasons why the organizational chart is important. If you're here, if you do it left to right, and you're about a third of the way, and everybody to your left has to be on board. They need to do the odd Gemba walk, or maybe every Gemba walk. Toyota, it's mandatory. No matter how high you up are in the country, or how high you are up in the company, you have to do a Gemba walk. But they don't see it as having to do a Gemba walk. They get to do the Gemba walk because that's what makes them very valuable to their company.
Well, thank you for the presentation, of course, and I really like the examples because it of course, gives us strong ideas that we can, how we can put that into some action. Did you also apply all these mindset with your suppliers? Because I'm sure you already maybe did it, but we have within our company we have very good example where sometimes we just take things for as they are when they come from our vendors, and we take our customers' expectations as well, as things that will never change. And sometimes we can save a lot of time just strengthening our communications with our vendors, our customers. I just had an example I have an example to share from last week. We have a very clever young engineer in our company. He built a model with Claude, the AI, to scan all our shipping papers that we got from our suppliers, because of course they are all different, and some of our suppliers can be English-speaking people, and they have a better English than me, believe me. So some documents are in English, some documents can be in French, some others can be in various different languages, German, Chinese as well. And so it's very hard for our receiving team to understand those documents always in the same ways. And sometimes the units we store those goods in inventory are not exactly the same units that our vendors are using or shipping us those goods or invoicing us. And so he built that model to scan everything and make sure everything was translating could be translated into our units and our language. So it's brilliant. However, I just talking about that and how we could implement it and make sure the team could use it. It was not, in fact, easy to use on a daily basis. And so we came to a point okay, but did we ask our vendors if they could respect our codes, our units, turn everything into English? And in fact, we didn't ask them at the first point. And so we did that. It didn't work with all of them, but with maybe half, we are already getting documents that are in a kind of format that respect our standards and not their standards. And most of them were happy to do so. But we just never, before that, we didn't start that communication. Again, you talked a lot about communication between the company, but I also believe, and I'm sure you do too, that with vendors or customers, you have as well a lot of time to save working with them on a more closely basis.
That's a very good point. I can use the example because we were shown that in that year of training. And so we created, we had the list of our suppliers. The largest supplier was PFG Glass. Amy, right? So we had a great relationship with PFG. We were there at the plant 4 times a year, even though I'm sure we were their smallest customer. We were on Vancouver Island, but they came to us 3 times a week. We came over and visited them, and we worked together on EDI, electronic data input, years before our software, that it was really happening. And we split the cost of somebody writing some software so we could export into a spreadsheet our order electronically, and they could import it. It cut down on the amount of deficiencies, because if we entered in 13/16 when we meant 15/16, then the glass didn't fit. And if they entered in 15/16 when we wanted 13/16, the glass didn't fit. We started cutting that down. We just kept working together saying, okay, what more? We just kept asking PFG, how do we be a better customer to you? What do you need from us to make it less expensive for you to ship to us? But when it comes time for increases, we'd like less of an increase. And we received that. We had a better relationship because of that. We asked to be better clients of our supporters, and you should do the same. Start with your top suppliers and say, how can we be better for you? But we want something out of it, right? It should be mutually beneficial. We don't want to just be less expensive to work with. We want to benefit for that. And we received one with PFG and with all of our major suppliers. We just kept working down the list, and we would go and visit. We didn't get a lot of visits on the island because it's where we were, but we did get. We would go and visit. We'd fly out to Toronto and went to the Vision plant many times, and that's the way to create that relationship. Any other questions or comments? We all know how to. By the way, I didn't do that on accident. I put that up there on purpose. Like this toad. All right. This is very valuable for you. When you go back to your work, your desk, just write something or go get yourself a toad and put it in the corner of your desk and just look at that all the time. I have a thinking man that I got from Zimbabwe, and I keep it on the corner of my desk, and it just basically tells me just always keep thinking, is there a better way, another way? You know, there always is. That's whether or not we can figure it out. There is always a better way to do everything. It's up to us. These lean tools can be helpful in helping you get to that better way. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Cam. Excellent. Excellent.